Have a seat. We're going to get started in a minute. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is a song that a bunch of us played for Alma on her 80th birthday. It was during COVID, so there was social distancing, so we arrived down on the grass outside her place, and she came out onto the balcony and waved at us, a bit like the Queen. Well, better than the Queen, actually, because she seemed genuinely pleased to see us. This is called Flower of Scotland, and you're welcome to join in and sing along if you know the words. Oh, flower of Scotland. Oh, hang on, I'll put it up here so it's a bit more strident. Oh, flower of Scotland, when will we see your like again? That fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen, and stood against him, proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward to think again. The hills are bare now, and autumn leaves lie thick and still. O land that is lost now, which those so dearly held that stood against him, proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward to think again. Those days are past now, and in the past they must remain, but we can still rise now and be the nation again that stood against him, proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward to think again. The hills are bare now, and autumn leaves lie thick and still, o'er land that is lost now, that those so dearly held. O flower of Scotland, when will we see your like again? That fought and died for your wee bit hill and glen, and stood against him, proud Edward's army, and sent him homeward to think again.
Thank you, Don. That was lovely. And thank you all, and welcome everyone. I should just give you a little heads up that the way things will unfold this afternoon is not quite the way it's presented in the program. There's been some changes, so we'll just roll with it. We're all festival folk here, and we know how to do that. So my name is Kevin McKeown, and some of you know me, some of you don't. But I'm delighted to be here and welcoming all of you. The Vancouver Festival world is a bit like a big family. Beginning in the early days of the children's, folk music, and writers' festivals, many of us found ourselves working together at the same events year after year, and friendships were formed. Some of us have stayed in touch, and some have drifted apart, as old friends are wont to do, but we still share the memories of those times. During my 20 years as publicist for many of our festivals, including the 3 I mentioned, I met many amazing folks, including the woman we are gathered here today to honor, Alma Lee. In the 10 years that it was my honor and sometimes challenge to work with the Writers Festival and our friend Alma, you know, I learned many valuable skills that served me well in the years and festivals to come, and for this I am very grateful. As I review the RSVP list for today and look out at this afternoon's assembly, I spot names and faces that bring back many fond memories. You know who you are, and I thank you for joining me. It's a bit like a family reunion, isn't it? It's now my privilege to ask Peter Howitt, of the General Manager of CMHC Granville Island, to come and, sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. I've got lost in my notes here. What am I doing? Tom. Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm off to a great start.
Who is this Peter guy? Yeah, thanks for breaking the ice. That was good. So, my name is Tom Lancaster. I'm the general manager here at Granville Island for CMHC. I was asked to give a land acknowledgement. I am not Indigenous, but I will do my very best to welcome you all here, not on behalf of the nations, but as part of CMHC. Our role is stewarding this place over time, which we've done now for 52 years, into the future, in great partnership with our 3 host nations that I work closely with, the Musqueam, Squamish, and the Tsleil-Waututh, whose traditional territories are unceded that we're on today. I also just wanted to say one thing, maybe 2, about Alma, and in recognition of all of your relationships with her. I only knew her for 5 years. She was one of the first people, I think the 3rd person from the community who reached out to me when I started in October, and almost actually to the day. And she reached out to me. She was lovely. She was wonderful. She was one of the most inspiring and gorgeous conversations I'd had in a long time. I thought, wow, this is gonna be a great job. I missed the joke. No, I knew her long enough to get that joke, and I worked closely with the Granville Island Council. I asked some of the council members who had worked also with Alma when she was on the trust for Granville Island. It was a long time ago. And the words that came up were exactly the same words that I would use to describe her, but I think I'm not going to do that because you all know who she is, who she was, and what she meant far better than I do. But I will say one thing. She was so unbelievably effective at doing what she did, and she cared so deeply about it, that really has carried me through in the back of my mind and in my heart for the last 5 years. So I am so appreciative that you're all here. Thank you, Leslie, for putting this all together, and thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Tom, for that. I obviously need new reading glasses. What I had intended to do was what I had intended to do before introducing Tom was to thank Peter Howitt, the piper, who welcomed you all earlier, and Don McGlashan, who played Flower of Scotland for us. And it is now my privilege to introduce to you the Writers Festival's artistic director, and I'll probably get this name right, Leslie Hurtig.
Thanks, Eduardo. Hi everyone. I'm going to start with a message from someone we all know. And when I was musing about reading this message, I thought, ooh, could I try to say it in her voice, but I would not dare do that. But I know all of you, as I'm saying this, will imagine her voice because we all know it so well. This is a message from Margaret Atwood. Hello, this is Margaret Atwood sending a small tribute for our dear friend Alma Lee. Graham and I first knew her in the 1970s when we had a bunch of other eccentrics hanging around. You had to be an eccentric to be a writer in those days. We were putting together the Writers' Union of Canada. Alma was a wee, curly-headed Scottish hippie who said, "Far root," and was a fiery ball of we-can-do-it energy. She was our first executive director, or whatever we called her in those days, and it is in large part due to her that the union was able to pull itself together and build itself out. You all know about her founding the Vancouver Writers Fest, so I won't dwell on that, except to remark how very successful it has been over the years. Instead, I'll mention Alma's kindness. She was one of the lovely souls. I will always remember the care she took of Brian Brett, poet and fellow firebrand, who was felled by a stroke and confined to a wheelchair in a care home. Alma visited him often and made darn sure that I'd visited him too, or else. Alma gave so much to so many. She was strong of will, tender of heart, and had one of the most infectious smiles of all time. She will be much missed. I will just start by acknowledging CMHC Granville Island. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for providing this space in which we are gathering here today, and also the Granville Island Hotel for providing this incredible spread of food that you see over here. The Granville Island Hotel is a gem in this city. It's like a hidden gem, they say. The food there is excellent. And I know several of us will be heading over there after this, and I encourage you to all come and let's carry on the conversation and toasts to Alma over at the Granville Island Hotel, but also spread the word about this beautiful boutique hotel because it really is a wonderful thing to have here, not only on Granville Island, but in Vancouver. Alma and I first met in 1995 when I was a young publicist for Michael Reynolds, bringing authors like Maeve Binchy and Frank McCourt to the festival. It was a thrill. It was a total thrill. In 2000, Alma invited me to join the board of directors, and we remained friends ever since. We have had, in the storage space of Festival House, where the Vancouver Writers Fest's offices are, a 3-level bright orange filing cabinet, crammed with an assortment of files in every color of the rainbow. Each file contains the invitations, correspondence, author photos, and publicity material for every author Alma ever invited to the Vancouver International Writers Festival. Imagine, of course, remember, of course, that it must have been what it must have been like making these arrangements before email existed. Imagine or remember what it was to type or pen an invitation to a young debut author in Scotland and to receive a month later a handwritten note from that author saying he'd be delighted to visit Vancouver, Canada, and how nice of Alma to think of him. Alma did think of that budding writer, Ian Rankin, just as she thought of so many other budding writers and literary icons. The list of names and handsome photographs uncovered in that bright orange filing cabinet is too great to recount here, but the thing that struck me most, apart from the adorable and almost prepubescent photos of Bill Richardson, Lawrence Hill, Eden Robinson, Bill A. Nickerson, and Kenneth Opel, when they must have been, I think, 20 or so, or at least that's how they look to me now. The thing that struck me most was the foresight Alma had in selecting some of the best debut authors, authors that today are the staple of any Canadian bestseller list and beyond, and the influence to encourage established best-selling international authors to visit this new festival on the west coast of Canada year after year. She devoted a lifetime to Canadian literature, from acting as the founding executive director of the Writers' Union of Canada and the Writers' Trust of Canada, and as the co-founder in 1988 with her dear, dear friend, Lorenz von Fersen, of the Vancouver International Writers Festival, a position she held for almost 20 years. She was a member of the Order of Canada, a recipient of the Jack Award, the YWCA Woman of Distinction Award winner, and the Writers' Trust Award of Distinguished Contribution. And in 2005, she received an honorary doctorate of literature from Simon Fraser University. Above all else, Alma was a mother, and a mother of boys at that. And any of you in the audience who are friends of Alma's know how she delighted in her boys, and how she took great care to ask after her friends' children as well. As she got older, well after she retired from the festival, Alma remained active and social. She took on advocacy and fundraising roles for organizations such as the Granville Island Cultural Society, the Carol Shields Prize for Fiction, the South Granville Senior Center. She took great pride in staying physically active and would march to these meetings with purpose, and later did not think twice about letting us know when she needed a ride to a meeting, a party, or an event. And I think there are several of Alma's honorary drivers in the audience today. Please raise your hand if you're one of them. Totally. She never, ever hesitated to tell you when she needed something and needed it now. Love it. And how to get there, too, yeah. What I admire most about Alma right to the end was how she never stopped making friends. She was deeply interested in others and got energy and joy from talking to new people. She remained opinionated in the best way, engaged and inquisitive. I think this is what made her such an extraordinary programmer. She delighted in conversations with young people and old, and she delighted in engaging debate. Over these past several months, I've sorted through that bright orange filing cabinet, making space for new authors and books. I've set aside mementos that we'll use when we celebrate the 40th anniversary of this festival in 2027. Sorry. One of the mementos that stands out and is familiar to festival goers and to our staff is this sign, reserved for Alma Lee. We're gonna miss seeing her face in the front row of our festival this year. Thank you, Alma, for leaving this cultural legacy. Our city is the richer for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. That was lovely, and again brought back so many memories. I would be remiss probably in not saying something about the name of this event. It's undergone some transformation, keeping up with the times, and it is now the Writers' Fest, and it was earlier the Writers' Festival. But I recall in the early 90s being firmly instructed and contractually obliged to remind people and to not do so at my peril, that this was the Vancouver International Writers and Readers Festival. Alma was quite clear about that on several occasions when I left it out of a press release or something. I am now going to call upon two people who have offered to give their own tribute to Alma, and I'm asking Billy Nickerson and Carmen Rodriguez to please come to the stage.
Hey folks, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. So I love Alma very much, and I'm happy that we were able to celebrate her so many times, I think, during her life and now today. She loved these shoes, so I wore these for her. That seemed important. Okay, so one evening in the early 2000s, at the end of a reading we both attended, Alma walked up and said she would like to meet to talk about something. So this scared the bejesus out of me. Maybe you have felt that. I kept thinking, like, what would Alma Lee want to say to me? Like what is this about? So Alma eventually asked if I would curate an event for younger voices, and we called it the Tattoos and Piercings Crowd, in this very venue on Thursday nights at the festival. So I'm lots of amazing memories in this venue. And even though I had neither tattoos nor piercings, I said yes, and I felt I was young, but more importantly, I trusted that Alma would let me champion voices that may not otherwise have been included. And that's when you had Alma on your side and you had Alma there with you, you felt invincible. And she really empowered artists and other folks working in the arts to do those things. So I learned that from Alma, and she's still here. So one of the strange things that happened, though, is the fact that I was doing these events with her, and at one point I asked her if I could have go-go dancers, as one does at literary events. That led to this very surreal experience of being a guest with Alma and the late, great Rick Clough, CBC Radio, to talk about go-go dancers at the literary event and talk about the festival's first ever underwear sponsorship from Ginch Gaunch. Alma she just thought this was hilarious and just super went with it. She reveled in both the silliness and the mischievousness. So many people don't realize just how mischievous Alma could be. But also by doing those things, she loved that there was potential in that moment. She knew that she was reaching audiences and reaching people that may not have been included otherwise. So this is all part of Alma's belief in lifelong learning and reading. And no matter the size or the color or the looks of hands, she viewed them as an opportunity to place books. And then I had to have something a little bit irreverent about Alma. So Alma and I would go to movies a lot. We'd love going to matinees. And on this one occasion, I glanced over and I noticed that she wasn't wearing her Order of Canada pin. And she always wore her Order of Canada pin. It was always on her lapel, and she had it with pride. And I whispered, I went to her, I said, Alma, are you not wearing your Order of Canada pin because we're watching the Borat movie? And she looked at me and she got a little perturbed and she went, you gays notice everything. And as always, she was right. So I want to thank you, Alma, for taking a chance. And I just want you to know that whenever I see go-go dancers, I think of you.
I'm a little bit shorter than a little bit. Can you see me? I wish I had worn my high heels. Okay. Yeah? Ah. Oh, that stool is too tall for me to stand on. He's got something for me to stand on. I can hear a door shutting. This is getting exciting. He's gone. Where is my prop? Oh, there, another door. Or maybe the same door. No, he doesn't have one. Okay, can you see me? As long as you can hear me. Okay. My name is Carmen Rodriguez. I'm a Chilean-Canadian writer living here in Vancouver. I met Alma in 1989 at La Quena Coffee House. Do you remember La Quena Coffee House on Commercial Drive? When she came to a fundraising event organized by the Aguilarre Collective, a group of Latin American and Canadian women of which I was a member, and that had just started publishing a bilingual quarterly magazine. A few weeks later, she phoned me to ask if I'd be interested in taking part in the upcoming Writers Festival, and if I knew of any other Latin American writers in the city. How did Alma know that I was a writer, given that I had never published anything in Canada? Had I read a couple of poems at the La Quena event? My mind was blank, and I lost my voice. Hello? Hello? Carmen? Carmen, are you there? She said, because she made a point of pronouncing it in Spanish, although it could have been Scottish. Yes. Yes, Alma. I said Alma. Alma in Spanish means soul. So from then on, I called her Alma. Not Alma, not Anna. Oh, no, Alma. Yes, yes, of course. Yes, I would love to take part in the festival. Yes, thank you. Alma hardly knew me, didn't really know my work, but decided to open a door to offer a mainstream, prominent platform to me and the then very young Latin American community in Canada. Our events at the festival were very successful, and the following year, Alma hired me to put together a full-fledged Latin American program, which ended up including writers who came all the way from Chile, Argentina, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, and the US and Canada. A program that was presented to full, enthusiastic houses. After that, she wrote the foreword for my first book, Guerra Prolongada, Protracted War, a volume of poetry, and invited me to take part in the festival when that book and subsequent ones were published. Along the years, we became close friends and also continued to collaborate in different initiatives, like, for example, going on Weight Watchers together. She lost the weight and kept it off. I lost the weight and gained it back. The last of those initiatives was her work at the Senior Center on West 12th and Hemlock. Today, as we celebrate Alma's remarkable life and as we name her contributions and attributes, I want you to know that Alma was also a gambler, an intelligent woman who trusted her gut feelings and took risks. When I finally asked her how come she had invited me to the festival without really knowing my work, she said, "Oh, Carmen, my bones told me you were a good writer, and my bones never lie." Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Carmen and Billy. I didn't realize that we gays notice everything, and that may shed some light on an early experience. I joined the Writers Festival in 1992 which would have been my third year with the Dragon Boat Festival. And right after that festival, somebody phoned me and said, the Writers Festival has just fired their publicist, you should give them a call. So I met with Alma and the general manager, Hazel Curry, and we had an interview, and I guess they liked what they saw and heard, and they hired me. But a few weeks later, Hazel took me aside and she said, Alma and I have been wondering this. Are you gay? And now I know that that was probably a good thing when I said, yeah, well, I always wondered. Hey, I have another tribute that came in over the transom from someone that many of you will know who unfortunately, due to his own health problems, is not able to be with us today. But this is a message from Todd Wong, otherwise known as Toddish McWong of Gung Haggis Fat Choi. I have fond memories of Alma whenever our paths crossed in both the library and Scottish diasporas, literary and Scottish diasporas. She always shared fondly how people often thought she was Chinese because of her surname, and that she would love to give the immortal memory at a Gung Haggis Fat Choi dinner. Regrettably, she was unable to ever arrange that given her schedule. It was great that Alma and I were both included in the exhibition, This Is Who We Are, about the Scottish diaspora, cultural, and place names in Canada. It was created by Harry McGrath after he returned to Scotland after having served for the Centre for Scottish Studies at SFU. I was privileged to attend the exhibit on St. Andrew's Day at the foyer of the Scottish Parliament buildings in 2009, and I was able to give a telephone interview report to Stephen Quinn back in Vancouver for CBC Radio. Thank you, Alma Lee, for all that you did for us. Cheers, Todd. Thank you, Todd. There are a number of other people who had hoped to be here and had responded that they would be here, and unfortunately, in the last few days, I had messages from them saying that they were unable to join us, but would I please pass on their good wishes to everyone who is here. And so regrets and fond wishes to you all from William Deverell, Leanne Zacharias, Moffat Clark, Sandy Cooper, and Betty Lou Phillips. And Aislinn, who's not able to be with us today either. I would now like to call up Sherry D. Wilson, who will read a poem as specifically requested by Alma in her final notes.
Hello, everyone, and good afternoon. Aislinn isn't going to be here, so I will share a story. I won't go over. I learned that from Alma. If you went over time, you would die. Alma is very dear to me. She was a teacher. She was like my art mother. She was a guide. She taught me many things about poetry and life and festival life, I would say. I came to the festival the first time back when it was still the Vancouver International. And at the time, I was working with what we called then street kids, and I was a punk type person. I know it's hard to believe now, but we all have many identities over our ages. And I was working at Station Street, and I was doing this poem, and I had this bagpipe player, and he would play the bagpipes, and I would yell the poem over the bagpipes, and dance around as well, and scream. And one night, when I was performing down there, Alma Lee comes over there and watches the performance. And then after comes up and says, would you like to come and do some poems at the festival? And I was like, yeah, sure, okay, because I saw it as more of a Illuminati poetry snobbery fest at the time for people who were much superior to me. And so I said, yeah, I'll come. But then I told my street kids, and I was like, I can't go and do that festival because, they're like literary people. And they were like, well, why don't you do your Sin City poem and everybody will like it? And I said, well, I'll do Sin City and I'll sit on a cake if you guys make me the cake. And they were like, okay, we'll make you the cake. And I didn't think they'd make me the cake. I mean, they were irresponsible. And like myself, it was like, there's going to be no cake, and I just planned to do it without the cake. And then that morning, that Sunday, it was before the cabaret thing. But anyway, they show up at my back door with their really tall hair and the cake. And it was the largest cake ever. They stayed up all night making it, and they loaded it into the car. We came down to Granville Island, and I said, you guys carry the cake onto the stage, and then I'll just lift up my dress, and I'll say the poem, and I'll sit on the cake. And yeah, I know, because it was the literati. I wanted to shake things up. I thought they were snobs, and I hated their poetry. So, my kids with the very tall hair and piercings and the whole regalia, they put the cake on, and I came out and lifted my skirt and sat on the cake while doing the poem about sitting on the cake. And it was really good. It really felt good. I did it many times after that because of its amazing, anyway. Back in the days when that mattered is a thing. Now, it's like I'll be eating the cake. But afterward, I thought, boy, that Alma Lee, she's going to really hate me now because, I just did something wicked and bad. And I'm a bad punk, badass girl. Alma comes up to me, and she goes, oh, that was wonderful. That was the best thing I ever saw. And she, I loved it. And I was like, who is this woman? And then, I got to know her, and I got to know her well. And I feel very fortunate to have known her. She was fierce, and she was kind, and she was wicked, and she was magical. And she had brooches and earrings and grace and integrity and respect for what she desired. She was a woman of light, and she was a woman of energy. And so I was very honored, I suppose, given I didn't, but I was very honored that I was invited to read this poem. At first I thought, why the hell am I reading someone else's poem? Because my ego was, and then I read the poem, and I was like, this is a beautiful poem. And then I saw on the top of the sheet that she wanted and requested this poem to be read on this day. And as I read the poem, I understood why. because she knew so much about poetry. And this poem is her way of sending a message to you, to us, as it is a poem that is directed to the listener as if it were coming from her voice. So it is an honor to speak in her voice. And it is a poem written by Lim Sisay, and it's called Invisible Kisses. If there was ever one whom when you were sleeping would wipe your tears when in dreams you were weeping, who would offer you time when others demand, whose love lay more infinite than grains of sand. If there was ever one to whom you could cry, who would gather each tear and blow it dry, who would offer help on a mountain of time, who would stop to let each sunset soothe the shadowed mind. If there was ever one to whom when you run would push back the clouds so you'd be bathed in sun, who would open arms if you would fall, who would show you everything if you lost it all. If there was ever one who, when you achieve, was there before the dream and even then believed, who would clear the air when it's full of loss, who would count love before the cost. If there was ever one who, when you were cold, will summon warm air for your hands to hold, who would make peace in pouring pain, make laughter sing in falling rain. If there was ever one who can offer you this and more, who in keyless rooms can see open doors, who in open doors can see open fields, and in open fields harvests yield, then see only my face in reflection of these tides through the clear water beyond the riverside. All I can send is love in all that this is, a poem and a necklace of invisible kisses. Thank you.
Hello everyone, Chris Humphreys here in Totnes in Devon. I so wish I was there with you on Granville Island this afternoon celebrating our lovely Alma Lee. I first met Alma at Book Expo in Toronto in 2000. My first novel was out in bound white proofs, and I think Alma read about maybe 3 paragraphs and said, "Would you like to come to my festival?" I accepted with alacrity, and that autumn appeared at the Vancouver Writers Festival and was of course immediately in awe of it, of her, the grace with which she handled everything, of her eclectic literary taste spanning the genres, of the marvellous team she'd assembled. I didn't really get to know her that well, and on the last night I was having a chat with her in what are dear mutual friend Brian Brett termed the hostility suite. The hospitality suite. And I asked her, are you going to take a nice holiday after this? She said, no, actually I'm going to house sit for a friend of mine in Mount Pleasant. And I said, do you want a roommate? And she said, aren't you going back to London? And I said, no, I'm going to hang out and see if I can pick up some TV work. So she said, move in. So I became Alma Lee's roommate. I got to know her on a completely different level. And or roomie, as she'd call me, we'd get together in what she termed our jammies. We'd sit around, drink wine, watch TV, read books, laugh, and laugh. And I got to know the quirks of this woman. Beyond the amazing facade was this deeply quirky person. She could make a tea bag last a whole week, single tea bag. And, get this, she'd double dip our mutual strawberry jam. She'd come and visit us in London where we were living at the time. I remember her dancing with my 2-year-old son, Reith. Come dance, Alma, come dance. And there she was, dancing away. And we moved back to Vancouver. We hung out a lot more, and Salt Spring Island, she visited us there. And I think Kenny and Alan sort of accepted that they had another brother, a third brother had appeared. And Alma was like a mother to me in many ways, but she was also just such a great friend. I'm dedicating my novel, which is coming out next year, to Alma. And I found a quote from one of her favorite poets, Robbie Burns, called Epitaph on My Own Friend. And it goes like this. If there's another world, she lives in bliss. If there is none, she made the most of this. She certainly did. Alma Lee, what a life. I miss you, darling. I love you. Bon voyage, eh?
Thank you very much. I think this is tall enough, high enough? No, maybe? It's hard to tell. Thank you. Yes, thank you, Sherry D. And before we reach our finale here this afternoon, I have a couple of other thank yous. I would like to thank CMHC Granville Island, the Granville Island Hotel, Barry Ogre for the lovely flowers and the heather that's in your programs and on the tables, and Tree of Life Distributors for the Walker's Shortbread that you're either enjoying now or can enjoy afterwards. And we thank them all. I'm next going to call up Alma's sons, Kenny and Alan. Kenny is going to give us a eulogy and ask us to join him in a toast to Alma, at which point Alistair Lee will play The Flowers of the Forest, and that will conclude the official part of this afternoon. You're all invited to stay as long as you, well, not as long as you might wish, but to stay for a good bit and mingle and chat with old friends, and please raid the buffet again, or I'll be eating that for breakfast for the next several days. Thank you all very much. This has been an honor and a privilege, and if Kenny and Alan would join us on the stage, thank you again.
This is kind of funny, given what I'm about to say, but I've lost my glasses. Does anyone have a pair of reading glasses? These work, should I do? Before handing it over to my brother, just a few things about my mom many of you might not know. Her maiden name was Stark, not of Game of Thrones fame, just as fierce. To Mom's horror and shame, this is very hard to say here, I am not a big reader. My lack of knowledge regarding writers continually shocked and exasperated her. I remember her excitedly telling me she'd landed Ian Rankin to attend the Writers Festival. I said, "Who?" Timothy Finley, she asked me one time. "You mean Tiff, the cat sitter?" Margaret Atwood. "Yes, Mom, of course I know her. The famous ornithologist?" "Och, Alan," she'd say, "it's beyond the pale. Do you read it all?" "Yes, Mom, I read the closed captions with you when we watch Netflix together." Another thing you may not know about our mom is that she was a very young mother, for many years a single mother, exceptionally hardworking and devoted mother. She was the best mother that these two unruly boys could ever ask for. She was our lifeline, and we're just barely beginning to figure out how to live without her. Before I start crying, too late, I give you Kenny, the one who actually is a big reader, to eulogize our mother, our favorite person in the world. Now my brother will read our eulogy. Thanks, brother. Cheers, Pop. And if anyone sees my glasses, sorry.
You got them?
Yeah, no, I don't want them.
Thank you all for having been here today for Mom's Celebration of Life, and also to those of you watching online and from afar. My brother Alan and I would personally like to thank Kevin McEwen, Anne McDonnell, Leslie Hertig, and Lorenz von Fersen for putting this all together today. Thank you all. Today, my brother Alan and I wear the Royal Stuart tartan to honor Mom's father, whom she loved and missed very dearly after moving to Canada. This is not our family tartan. That is a Robertson. We wear Robertson regalia in recognition of our family clan from Mom's side. The Royal Stuart is the tartan her father wore in the British Army at Edinburgh Castle, where he was the pipe major for some time in the Royal Scots 7th and the 9th Battalion. He also manufactured bagpipes from a shop in Edinburgh for many years in the Marchmont area near the Meadows in Edinburgh. This is where Mom grew up, where Mom's family are still mostly there in Edinburgh, with a few in other places. They have been with us today also watching online. Hello to you all. At the end of this eulogy, the piper Alistair Lee will play Flowers of the Forest. Mom picked this tune for many reasons, one of which I'm sure you'll know when you hear it. Flowers of the Forest is a Scottish folk tune commemorating the defeat of the Scottish Army and the death of James IV, who was King of Scotland from 1488 until his death at the Battle of Flodden in 1513. James IV was a patron of the arts, the law, literature, and science, and with his patronage, the printing press came to Scotland. Due to the reverence given it, it is one of the few tunes that pipers perform only at funerals or memorial services. What I'll always remember about our mother, aside from her incredible contribution to Canada's literary community and the recognition and many accolades she received, such as the Order of Canada, is by far her love of nature and wildlife. She always took walks every day to take in the nature around her, often at Van Dusen Gardens and at the seawall at Stanley Park with her dear friend Lorenz von Fersen. She also loved Tofino and the west coast of Vancouver Island. Her love of nature came from her grandfather, who was a groundskeeper in the Pentland Hills near the village of Curry, just outside Edinburgh. It is Curry Kirk Church that my mother and father were married, and where her grandparents' grave sites are. It is also where we brought Mom home to lay her remains. She now lays at rest in the shade of a beautiful wild cherry tree at Curry Kirk with her grandparents. She always told us everything she learned about nature was from her grandfather when she was growing up, walking with her grandfather on the paths and fields in the Pentlands, and him telling her the names of all the flowers and fauna there. I had the pleasure of a memorable walk there earlier this summer. Mom could also tell you the name of almost any plant or flower she came across on her walks. When she would visit Scotland, whether it was Edinburgh or Glasgow, she had to visit the botanical gardens in both cities. It was a must. And everything was on a determined schedule. No time to waste, so better learn your plants quick. Pay attention. That was Mom. I live a few minutes now from the Clyde River in Glasgow. I've had many walks there this summer, and as I walk the banks, I find myself wondering what's this plant or what that shrub is. Slowly, I'm educating myself on them all with Google Lens, great for learning plants. I took Mum for a walk there when she visited a few years back, so it's become a place of healing for me now also. The Clyde is now my new pal, as they say in Glasgow, and a reliable one at that, always there when you need it. I think this is why Mum loved nature. It is always there for you. Mum was also very much the same with the ornithological world. She could name countless birds. If you frequented her place, she had a whole bird feeding and plant growing operation going on. We kept the bird feeders and her many plants going until we closed the door at her place for the final time. It is something I'll personally always cherish. I knew her spirit was with me. The other thing I'll remember was conversation. I personally always felt I could talk to my mother about anything at all, the way you would with a close friend. She was my closest friend. This is something she passed on to my daughter Olivia. She felt open with her grandmother too. We all felt very open and comfortable talking with each other about pretty much anything. And I know Olivia feels her grandmother's loss deeply, and I'm sorry she can't be with us today. She started college, of which her grandmother would be proud of her for continuing her education, as is her mother too. There are so many stories of Mum's life to tell, I'd have to write a book to tell them all. From our arrival in Canada in 1967, she seemed to look at this new country as her living room and proceeded to rearrange the furniture the way she saw fit. And I'd say she did a pretty good job of that task. As a child, she was hard to keep up with at times, always felt like we were running to keep up. She pretty much kept going like that her whole life. There were many trials and tribulations along the way during her life, as those of you who were close to her will know. That just added to her determination to do things the way she wanted, bloody-minded to the point of infuriating at times, truth be told, but always with one goal in mind, and that was everything to be done correctly. She started as an old-school professional secretary at Drambuie in Scotland, one of her first jobs. She could type faster than anyone I know. I remember her Underwood typewriter clacking away and dinging on the return. Then came the electric selectric with that little ball hammering away. It was part of her core being, organizing. Cross the T's, dot the I's, CC to relevant parties, and carbon copies filed. Even as kids, we had lists on the kitchen table, chores, shopping, cleaning, laundry, etc. We dreaded those lists. Kept us busy, though, and out of trouble, sort of. No matter what happened in her life, she kept on going with determination, grace, and love. She loved me and Alan, her granddaughters Olivia and Nisa, and all her family in Scotland, especially her brothers, as well as Scotland itself. In fact, her last words were to be, "I'm Scottish," after 50 years in Canada. While Mum was in hospital during January, she got pretty down about her situation. I knew Robbie Bird's Day was coming. I told her, "We're going to do a bird's supper for you. That is haggis, neeps, tatties, and whiskey." I believe this lifted her spirits and gave her something to look forward to and the determination to push on. Very Scottish. The night before, she had her Burns book of poems opened on her favorite poem, To a Mouse. She fell asleep reading it aloud, as it was what she was going to read at the supper the following day. As I sat there watching her sleep, I became aware of something moving about under the bed. It was a mouse. As soon as it saw me, it took off, never to be seen again. The following day, as she read the poem, the sun came out, and on her blue hospital gown, through the cross on the window, it made a white X on her chest, exactly like the St. Andrew's cross or the Saltire, which is the flag of Scotland. She raised her tiny glass of whiskey, and we made a toast in what turned out to be her last whiskey ever. I can't think of a more appropriate day to have had your last whiskey. Burns Day, and with a saltire from the sun, the god of the Celts. And that toast I would like to do now. So can you please raise your glasses to our mother and your friend. And here's to us, ways like us, damn few and they're a deed. You're with your pals now, Mum. We love you and we miss you dearly. Schlanjeva.
Schlanjeva.
And on we go. Love you, brother.
Love you too. Alistair Lee is now going to play Flowers of the Forest.
Thank you, everybody, for coming today. Appreciate it. Thank you, Alistair. I think falling apart a little.
All right. I think that's it.